What's up, fine people? It's your boy Glenn Lawrence. I'm back with another episode of the Blerd Dad Podcast, a space where we like to have unfiltered conversations and nerd out about parenthood. Things have been going well in terms of comedy. Things have been going well in terms of parenting. Look at that. I put myself first because the thing I like is comedy, but the parenting's also been going well. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you what, this kid is full of comedy. He is being hilarious, saying hilarious things. He's got a mind of his own. One of the things that he thinks is the most humorous is to just wake up super early and bring all his toys into our room. That is his favorite bit. He loves that bit, and he does it every morning, whether we want him to or not. And he's just playing. He's playing. The thing is, it's like an Andy Kaufman thing. He just plays and pretends as if it's not happening to us. So that's what's going on in my life in terms of the parenting, but things are going well. Otherwise, he's learning, he's hitting milestones, and he's being an incredible little tyke, man. So that's good. That's good on my front. And on this front, we have an amazing person to talk to. So that's also good. That's also super, super positive. But before I get to all that, let me just give a shout out to our sponsors. It's theymademewear.it. Yes, it's theymademewear.it. They are a dog stylist dream, or they are dog stylists. They are a dog's dream, but they're dog stylists. It's two amazing people. They're a husband and wife team, and they're on a mission to get your pet looking great with the best fits that are out there for animals. So whether it's a custom designer gown, a Halloween costume, some comfy jammies, footies, booties. I think they should get into like manicuring, like doing, painting dog toenails and all that type of stuff. But that's a vertical I don't know if they want to go towards. Sometimes I try to pitch them in meetings when they come back and they say, hey, we want to keep sponsoring you. And I'm like, hey, why don't you guys think about giving doggy manicures? And then they say, stay in your lane, shut up, keep talking about parenting, and just give us our plug. And I say, thank you very much. And we go on about our business. That's a little inside baseball. But what you need to know is you give them money, they will give you great clothes for your doggies. And just know when you're giving them that money, you're also contributing to Hope for Paws, which is an animal rescue organization that works tirelessly to get these abandoned animals off the streets in like a humane way. They give them to people, you know what I mean? Not the other way. Anyway, it's amazing. You should check out theymademewear.it and then use code word blerd for 15% off at checkout. Now that we have talked about our sponsors, let me talk about our amazing guest today. It's Badar Tareen. He is a civil rights lawyer by day and an award-winning stand-up comedian by night. I got to ask him about that because I'm trying to win some awards. His comedy can best be described as analytical, energetic, and unique, hitting on many different audiences, given Badar's day job and background as a Pakistani Muslim who grew up in a small town in North Dakota. He has frequently opened for Zarna Garg and other comedians like Akash Singh, who, by the way, just put out an amazing special on on Twitter. That thing is, it's fire. I'm not just saying it because the name is in front of me now. That was one of the best specials that I've seen in a long time. It had something to say. It was funny. And I really, really enjoyed it. He's also open for like Tony Woods and Marcela Hernandez. He's been selected to perform at over a dozen comedy festivals, like the Dubai Comedy Festival. He's performed at clubs throughout U.S., Europe, Asia, the Middle East. He currently runs Browntown Comedy, the largest South Asian comedy show in the D.C. area, and every show sells out. I haven't been on those shows. Hopefully we can rectify that as this interview goes on. But it sounds like it's amazing. He's based out of Virginia. He's got a beautiful wife. She's a doctor at Johns Hopkins. He's got a spirited son. He's captivated audience with a sharp wit. I could keep going on and on. There's a lot that this guy has apparently done. And I'm very happy to be talking with him. What is going on? Badar, what's happening, bro?
Hey, what's going on? How are you?
Dude, that is an amazing bio, bro. You've done so much, man.
Thank you. And I love the contrast between both of where we are. It's like I'm in heaven. and you're kind of like in the bad place.
I'm in the
nice.
why am I in the bad place? It's just dark. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's just dark. Actually, your place is way cooler than mine. Mine is so basic, and yours is like cool and trendy. You got stuff in the background.
But I see a little dark underneath. You got the dark underneath. I see
that, which is a reflection of my soul. Like there's horrible things underneath this dad's sweater that I got from Costco.
I'm sure you have a beautiful soul. You have a beautiful spirit, so I'm sure you have a beautiful soul as well. What's going on, man? How you been? It's good to see you. Good to finally talk to you because I haven't talked to you like extensively for a long time. We've seen each other in passing in these comedy streets. So I was like, oh, I found out you had a kid. And I was like, oh man, come on the podcast. Let's talk about parenting. How are you, man?
I'm great. And that's the funny thing about comedy is that you see all these different comedians and it's between your sets. So you talk to them for 2 minutes and then they get up on stage and you hear all these really personal, intimate details about their lives. And then bye, see you later. So you like have a sense about their personal life in a way you don't do with normal people.
Right.
But you don't like spend like so many weeks and months with them to usually ascertain that information. It's just like, I know this stuff because I've seen you on stage and then I talk to you for 2 minutes about it afterwards. So it's kind of wild.
Yeah,
comedians.
It's also interesting because like for us, right, we see each other in the physical space, but when you're doing comedy, like, and you're putting it out there, people will not be in your physical space and still like know those details about you. So they feel like they know you and they're coming up like, hey, and it's like they know you. There's already a relationship from them to you, but there's no relationship from you to them. So you have no idea about this person and like coming up. So that's also super interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the interesting thing is like, it's the only art form where it's really yourself, but with embellishment. So it is kind of you up there, but you're like exaggerating or you're kind of putting it in a different spin. So what you're putting out there, people think that's you, but it is you, but it's not. Like, I'm not like Bill Burr probably isn't that cranky all the time. Right. He probably isn't always that mad, but that's like his id that works really well. So I bet when people come up to him, I don't know if this is true, they expect like a different type of energy. He's probably like, hi, how are you? I'm really happy. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, it's cool when it's that way. Like you're very cranky seeming on stage, but then when you meet them off stage, they're all nice. The opposite way, I feel like sucks, where they're super nice on stage, and then you meet them off stage, and they're just like, oh, you're like, you do have a dark soul. You're terrible. You're a terrible person.
We have no patience for that, right? As a society, like look what happened to Ellen. Right?
Yeah,
like
right.
Ellen had this, I mean, she put this persona on, was like, be kind to others, supposed to be really nice. I heard some rumors. I'm sure we all heard some things about her. Yeah. But then the funny thing is, if it was like someone like Bill Maher, like if you found out he was an asshole in real life, you're like,
yeah, right.
Like, that's his persona. Like he is the mean old man who's like,
yeah, right.
You know, like so.
He seems like he's the type of person that is actually a jerk off stage too. Like he's
100%.
On stage and off stage. It's not a switch flip, you know?
Right. So that wouldn't be, it's just like we have these expectations. Like if Jon Stewart was like a racist, I would be heartbroken. Right. I would be almost betrayed.
Yeah, like, oh no, not you. But we've come to a weird place in society where I don't know what your age is, but I'm guessing by the peppered beard that you're around my age. And all of our heroes are turning out to be terrible. Like all the people that we loved and we really had an affinity for, we're like, oh, that person was also terrible.
Well, you know what's wild about that, though? This is the first time in human history where we're putting our heroes through a microscope that they never had to go through before. Right? Like if Gandhi was around during the social media age, he'd be canceled immediately because he used to like lie down in bed next to like 13 and 14-year-old girls to like test his resolve. You know, he said some weird, wacky shit. Yeah, 100% true. So
you know what? That's crazy though. You know why that's crazy? Because he's like, what if he failed? He's like, I didn't. I thought I had it, but I didn't.
And then he'd be like nonchalant about it, like, those chocolate chip cookies, man. They were real good. What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
But Martin Luther King Jr. like cheated on his wife. You know, like all these things that like these people who we hold to such high standards, nobody can live to that perfect sort of
Yeah.
flawless sort of
Well, there's
way.
like
So
there's multiple levels. There's like the moral level of like what they're doing, and then like like that's like illegal. So there's like that level too, and then there's like the ethical level of things. So it's just like all these different levels. It's like what standard are you holding people to? Like, do you have to be of the utmost like ethical standard? Do you have to be of the utmost moral standard? Do you have to be of the utmost legal? Probably you should be of
right,
that, what I mean? But it's just the standards that we're holding. Like if you're mean to people, if you say mean things to people, like is that something that should be you should be chastised for, like quote unquote cancel for, or people should really change the way they see, or it's just sometimes people are mean, what I mean? Like not everybody's nice 24/7, so sometimes mean is just a part of life, and you don't really necessarily need to cancel someone's art because they're
right,
like, like what level are we deciding that this person, right? Because here's the thing, before, and now we're going off on a tangent, but the whole canceling thing used to be reserved for people who had stature to actually affect people's lives,
right,
and not for like the dude who works at Subway. You know what I mean? Like it's not like
right.
you don't need to cancel that person.
Well,
Like they're not doing anything to like that really affects people's lives, except for maybe messing up their sandwiches or something. But it's now we've got to the point where like, that guy, he needs to be canceled too, and
right.
the waiter needs to be it's like, no, that's not what canceling is for. It's for people who are like giving out mortgages, or like who actually
Right.
had control of someone's life. You know what I'm saying? Those people are like, that's what you were looking out for,
Well, it creates a bizarre incentive too, because if that's the case, like if I say the wrong thing and I'm going to go away, I'm just going to pretend to be a nice person, and it just makes me fake. And
Yeah.
it's ironic because we want authenticity, but you can't be authentic if we're always afraid of being canceled. And I also think it's kind of weird, like we're putting so much energy into our celebrities
Mm-hmm.
and how perfect they have to be, but we don't care about our politicians. Like I remember this what happened. Remember Shane Gillis, right? Okay. So he got announced a while back that he was going to be on Saturday Night Live, big opportunity, right? And within 24 hours, somebody went through a podcast that he did. And it wasn't like written, you can't Google it. You have to actually like listen to the podcast, and then found him saying something like, he was riffing about East Asian people, not a great bit, but they found it. And then immediately he lost his job on SNL, and it looked like he was going to be gone. Then, of course, he came back. But the point is that someone took the time and energy to research a new SNL cast member because they think that the SNL cast member is going to affect their lives. Meanwhile, that person who looked up, Shane Gillis probably can't even name their two senators. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It
right.
had that the people who actually can change their life get a
Yeah.
free pass. But Shane Gillis is relevant because he shows up on your TikTok feed and your
Yeah.
Instagram feed, which
He
is
needs
so
to be,
bizarre.
yeah, he needs to be like canceled. I don't know. And kind of leading into what we were like talking about originally is like the parenting thing. How do you think that is going to affect like our kids
Yes.
in the future? Because so we're coming up and we're seeing it. We're like, oh, that's crazy. But it'll be the reality that they live in. So for us, it's like it seems like a crazy thing that'll probably go away. It seems like a fad to us because it just
Mhm.
started, and we like that's not how we grew up. So we're like, oh, that's definitely got to change. But the kids are living through it now, and it's like their reality. So they kind of make that perception or that thing happen and stick. And I wonder, like, what are they going to be growing up, and what are they going to go through, and how is it going to change their personalities? Because the kids now they're all happy go lucky, but if you live in this
Mhm.
constant like microscope of like don't do anything wrong, always say the quote unquote correct thing, which is determined, I guess, by corporations. You know what I mean? Like, what's the
Yeah.
right thing? Because like individual people usually are like, I don't really care about that. But like, I wonder how it affects them growing up and like what their personalities become because they always have been under this microscope.
Well, I think if everybody is on social media and everyone's saying stupid things, I think it'll eventually kind of cancel each other out, right? Because the cancel culture is still kind of a newer thing, and I think we're still kind of figuring it out. Like, look at Shane Gillis, right? He came back. He's even more famous and successful than he probably ever would have been if he would have stayed on SNL,
Right.
right? So I think also we're always in a pendulum in this country when it comes to these cultural norms. Like I look at it with movies, right? Like if you look at like the movies from like the 1980s or the 1950s, it was like super, everyone's got to be likable. Bill Murray at the end of the movie has to become a nice guy. But
Right.
then in the 90s, you had like Pulp Fiction where, Reservoir Dogs, everybody dies at the end. We're going to do really complicated movies that with terrible people. I mean, American Beauty won Best Picture, and it's about a guy who's trying to sleep with the 16-year-old across the street, and he's the good guy,
Right.
right? Like, you can't do that shit now. So I think that was the 90s, and then we kind of now we're back at this other place. I think it's going to swing back again. It's like a pendulum. I think
Yeah, I
there's
feel
going to
like
be a yeah.
the villain archetype is really going to make like a strong comeback as the anti-hero. So, and you kind of see it with like Marvel stuff, like Deadpool. You know what I mean? He's always been kind of
Yeah.
like an anti-hero, and he's like kind of coming back. And they're making him like the protagonist of the thing. So I don't know. It'll be very interested to see. It does worry me a little bit because I'm like, shoot, I'm older. I probably, I'm sure I have, days ahead of me and whatnot, but I've lived a cool life or whatever of all these changes, like whatever. But I would really hate for the children that we have for their childhood to be kind of taken away because they don't get to explore and have
Yeah.
those funny things and just just be able to be themselves. Say a bad thing and then figure out how to make it right or live in that or you know what I mean. I don't know. Just I feel like it's part
Yeah.
of growing up. I think you have to know how to you have to be able to say everything and we're going to grow up with a lot of kids who don't ever know who's being real to them because the only thing they hear is the fake thing 24/7.
Your kid is about my age, my kid's age. My kid is
Yeah,
3, right?
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, one thing I always think about too is like not kids our age, obviously they're too young, but kids who are like in their early 20s. If you read about them, that their life is so different than our lives. We were in our 20s. Like
Right.
they're way less promiscuous. They're not like drinking and partying. They're not, going out to get laid, which as parents we're like, yay, right? But at the same time, it's kind of thinking, well, actually, you kind of want people to make mistakes to go out and live a little because it
Yeah.
gives them character. You learn from your mistakes. It's kind of like, I trust me, I'm not a conservative, but one thing that Jordan Peterson guy said, because I don't
Hmm.
listen to him in terms of politics, but in terms of parenting, he actually has a couple interesting things to say. And one of the things he said was, if you see your kid doing something a little bit dangerous, but carefully, let him do it. Like, don't like back off. So if your kid's at the playground and they're
Yeah.
climbing up the ladder, like you can put your hand to spot them, but don't do it for them because they have to learn to fall down and get up again, that life's tough and that they have to like dust themselves off. So I kind of wonder too, like, because kids aren't like taking risks anymore, like the 20-year-old something, and they're kind of on their screen and they're not going out and doing the things that we did, like, are they going to be weaker and sheltered? So I kind
Mm.
of think about that too, is my kids' generation. Like, are they going to be the counterculture where they're going to be like, dazed and confused, let's go out and party? Or are they going to be basically like the 20-year-olds now where they're on their screens all day and
I,
not living
yeah.
life?
The pandemic generation, I think, is going to be wild. I think
Yeah.
they're going to be about life. They're
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Well, there's a tween. There's the newborns of the pandemic generation, and then there's the kids who are in like middle elementary school or whatever. I think those kids are going to be kind of a little a little whacked out because
Yeah.
they were in the middle of this whole thing. Like they had the life that we had, pre-pandemic, and then it just switched to this post-pandemic life where everything's kind of topsy-turvy, and they were literally in the middle of it. A lot of them had like their last years of high school taken away,
Yeah.
the last years of like middle school, middle years of high school, so they're learning to be social again. The kids in elementary school who had just started learning, things have changed drastically for them. They all of a sudden were home for a few years, and now they got to go back into this super structured thing again. It's just it'll be interesting to see how they come up. And what I wonder is, I don't know, I feel like a lot of truth nowadays is kind of coming to light, and things that we thought weren't aren't, and people are starting to like not trust the things that they're being told, and now they're
Mhm.
at home and
Yeah.
they're able to like learn things on their own, and they're not kind of in the schools like just learning whatever the school curriculum is. They had a lot of time to be on YouTube. They had a lot of time to be on Twitter, and you know what I mean, and see all this kind of stuff unfold in front of them. I wonder if they're going to be like, no, we're not going to accept the general consensus of XYZ, whatever the topic is, or are they going to be more kind of laid back about it and just kind of take what happens? Are they going to be social? That's another thing.
Yeah, I worry about that. Yeah,
So I
Mike.
don't know.
Yeah.
Does your kid go to like daycare, or do they like stay at home, or what? Like, what's the?
He goes to this. There's this church. They have
Uh-huh.
like this daycare. I don't know if people know this by the parenting hack for people who have little kids, but churches oftentimes have daycares that are extremely cheap and
Mm,
really awesome. It's like $400 a month,
yeah.
and he goes there 4 days a week. It's pretty awesome that as the Muslims we infiltrated again, we keep winning. But it's pretty awesome. I actually learned about it from our Jewish friends. We have a Jewish kid and a Muslim kid there. It's like great. We come together to screw up with the Christians, but it's a really great program. He comes there for 4 hours a day. So I kind of want my kid is really social. He's like his mom. He always needs to be around people. Like that's what makes him happy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got to get that energy out. So 4 days a week he goes there, and then we have an au pair, which is
Oh,
like
you fancy ass!
that's actually one of the cheapest forms of childcare. Actually,
Is it really?
if you're like it is because it's because they live with you,
Yeah.
and it's done through the State Department. So you pay them a stipend, but it's an exchange program. Really, it's more for them like to get education.
Mm.
So it's like actually way cheaper than hiring a nanny, or way cheaper than like a traditional daycare. Because traditional daycare is like 1,800, 1,900, 2,000 a month if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Whereas this is way cheaper than that. It's
Yeah.
like
I have I also have an au pair. I call her a wife. And she stays at home and takes care. She's gonna like strangle me after this, but yeah, that's my au pair. She stays home, takes care of the kid, which I think is cool. It's like having
you give her
having
a
the parent
stipend.
raise the yeah, exactly. There's a little stipend. Uh it's cool. She doesn't speak a foreign language, which I think is kind of a bummer. Got one of those American au pairs.
They don't work as hard. You gotta passport bro it, man.
You got a passport, bro. She's about to pop on here and be like, "Shut up." But here's the thing, though. I think it's really cool having I wouldn't say specialized, but having like the parent or someone who actually can pour into the child. Whereas, when you're sending them to daycare, it's like they're just trying to keep them all alive for the hours.
Yeah.
Because there's so many kids. It's like, what do you do? And of course, they are teaching them things, but mass teaching versus individualized teaching, I feel like there's something to be said for that. To be able to like kind
Yeah.
of individualize the teaching and cater to the learning style of the kid. We just talked to a friend of ours who does homeschooling, and she was just talking about how how that works, and I don't know, I just feel it is it's very useful to be able to expose your kids to more in terms of learning when they're young. um and homeschooling allows you to do that, because a lot of times if they're in school, they're kind of just doing the regimented learning
Yeah.
template.
Yeah. And I think like especially, my experience is I did go to public school, but I came from such a different kind of culture and different religious background. So there were so many things that were being taught at home that were not part of school curriculum, or not even part of the culture that we were surrounded by.
Yeah.
So I think that you do have to kind of tailor it, and that's a discussion within the communities that I'm around. So I'm Pakistani. I have a lot of friends who are Pakistani Muslim, and so a lot of people have this debate of, well, should I send my kid to an Islamic school? Should I school them, or should I just take
Yeah.
them to a regular public school so they could be part of the American kind of fabric, and acclimated with the rest of society? So it's just this big debate we always have, but we'll
I, I
probably send them to public school, but we'll
I was
see.
thinking, I mean, I don't know. I think having a little bit of each, you know what I mean? Having some
Yeah.
time when you can do like a homeschool, a specialized kind of learning thing. Also going into the public school and just understanding what that is about. You gotta do you just dip your toe in, you know what I mean? Like you gotta go in and get thrown to the wolves. And I only say that because I was talking to another parent, and they were just saying how these public schools are changing. It's not like when you
Yeah.
and I went to public school, like things are wild there. She was saying like
Yeah.
there's some kid like on the ground, he's just like twiddling a knife or something in the corner, and
Yeah.
nobody really says anything about it. It's like, hey, that's a weapon, isn't it? And it's like, yeah, he hasn't stabbed anybody yet. It's probably fine. It's just like a weird thing that they're walking through and navigating. And even when we were younger, there was the just navigating high school. It was, I don't know if I could do it now. Like I feel like
No.
things were like there's a lot of uh roasting and stuff, and a lot of bullying and stuff. It's like I just think about how I navigated that. I'm like, man, I really made it through. That was kind of crazy. Like,
Yeah, and when we were when I was growing up, like we all tease each other, but it was more the way like comics riff on each other. You know what I
right.
mean? Like it's almost a sign of I kind of like you by
Yeah.
being really, really mean.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I want you to kill yourself. Like the stuff that you hear about now is,
Yeah.
you should kill yourself, and then the kid does it. It's like we're in this weird place where you and I are now in a generation where we're in the middle. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if we were in the middle, in the sense that we didn't grow up with apps and the internet necessarily, but then later on in life, it's become ubiquitous. So it's like ingrained in our life, but we remember a time when it wasn't. But we're also in this weird place in life where now we're older and we're now not, I can't speak for you, like always up to date on who the young celebrities are and what life
Right.
is like in school, and everything looks strange and weird to us. And
Yeah.
remember when we used to think of that of our parents, like, oh, they just don't get it, they don't understand. That's becoming us now. And I'm like trying to like, balance that and try to be the cool parent. Like I know who Billie Eilish is, sort of, like sort
Well,
of.
here's
Uh
here, here's the thing. I feel like my parents, music was very big in my family, so I had an idea of the music that they listened to and the music that they liked and whatnot. And it was like, okay, it was old, but I get it. And I feel like the kids nowadays, they're like, they have no idea, and they'll hear like a song, and be like, oh, that's so amazing. It's like you do realize that was sampled from like something in the
yeah.
90s that was also
Yeah.
sampled from something that was like in the 50s or the 60s or the 70s. And I wonder, we have the saying like we're losing our recipes. I feel like
Yes.
yeah, I feel like is that
Yes.
happening? Like kids are kind of losing the connection of what the foundation was. And I feel like we were taught foundationally, you know what I mean? Like we were taught in terms of music as well, like Earth, Wind and Fire, and
Yep.
Coltrane and all this other stuff. And then that led into us using that music for the music of our generation. I feel like the kids, they're losing the recipes. They're not learning the foundations, and literally also losing the recipes of how to like cook and
Right.
clean and put things together and whatnot. I don't know. Do you do some teaching of it?
It's
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, okay. It is interesting how that's how their brains work. So if you look at what are the biggest TikTok trends or Instagram trends, it's always like copying what someone else already came up with, or just taking an existing song and then dancing into a certain way, and then all the
Yeah.
kids do it. Or if it's you just lip sync something like John Mulaney once said at a stand-up bit, and you just like lip sync it, and then that's your content. You know what I mean? Like there is this weird trend of I'm not creating something that's new and original, unique. I'm just basically remixing something that already existed. Like that's gone into their heads. It's been ingrained in
Mhm.
them because when you go to the movie theater, what do you watch? You watch remakes, sequels. Even the Marvel films are basically copying, like the really good ones are
Mhm.
basically copying something that Martin Scorsese did in the 1980s. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
all a remake and a copy. And I think that has permeated, and now our kids, I'm worried about that too. Is like, are they going to be able to be original? Like forge your own path, like do something different.
Yeah.
Do something
Well,
that I even don't understand. That's okay.
yeah.
Be a George Lucas. He did something that was completely off the rails. Like nobody understood that. What the hell is a Wookiee? Like the
Yeah.
studios didn't understand it when he made that.
What is a
But I
space
like it.
opera? Yeah.
Yeah, that's based off like Saturday matinee morning serials, but Darth Vader looks like a samurai, kind of like some of the early work. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm worried about is originality and
Well,
not God.
originality for sure. And then when you couple it with the whole canceling type of thing, then you're afraid to be original because,
Mhm.
oh, will this get me in trouble? No one said this before. I'm going to just do the prescribed thing because I know that will keep me safe, and that it's almost primal in that way too, where the things that keep you safe, you just keep doing because you know that you're safe doing them. Um, and I don't know. I really like to encourage my kid to just do uh do you, you know what I mean? Be the
Yeah, me
most
too.
authentic
Yep.
version of yourself, and that's okay. And that's one of the fears of public school, because they don't necessarily cherish that, especially when you come
Yeah.
from a different background. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like maybe the white kids
I
can
push that.
march to their own drum, but you should really do what we tell you to do.
I push them on that stuff too, like not like in a scary like backstage, theater parent kind of way, but although I will. No, we like at nighttime we do story time, right? And we make up a different story every night, and I make him tell me a story.
Oh,
And
really?
it's like,
Nice.
so I mean he's 3, so he's not like, it's not super complicated. It's usually the same plot. It's like he had donuts, the shredder stole the
All right.
donuts, and then he went and got the donuts back. That's basically not a lot of arcs there, but he's still like creating something, or he makes up songs. The other
Oh,
day he
nice.
was playing in the sink and he was just singing, "It might be dinosaurs, it might be dinosaurs," and then he looks at something like, "It might be yellow shoes." He'll just,
That's awesome.
so at least it'll be original. Like
Yeah.
that's my thing too. Like I'm sure with your content, what you create is like, maybe it'll be great, maybe it won't, but at least it's something you haven't seen before. At least it's something different. At least it's me and it's authentic. Like I'd rather
Yeah.
be that than be mediocre, successful, but like everything else, something that it's like an iteration of something that someone else already said. Like I don't want to do that.
Well, it's interesting because going back to the music thing, the music that we came up with, and I've heard this from different musicians. They would say they took away the after school programs and the music programs in the
Mm,
school. So the kids who wanted to create music, the only thing that they had was other people's music. So they would just take a little piece of that
yep.
and they would use that as their instrument to make a new sound or whatever. So they're remixing it. So they are making something new, but it's based off something that was before, but it is original in the way that they're using it. And now, like you're saying, we're getting to the point where don't even do that. Just do the thing that has already been done and then pretend that you're, Milli Vanilli it, which
Yeah.
is unoriginal. So it's like I think it's kind of crazy how we did the most original thing, which is take something that's existing and flip it all around and make it kind of yours. And now people are like, oh, remix. Okay, I'll remix. I'll just, throw the thing that was already done and pretend I'm saying it. That's my remix. And it's like that's not exactly original, but I guess to them
Yeah.
it is, It
Yeah, and hip hop and rap deserves a lot of credit for that. Like they'll take tracks like ones that you've never heard of, maybe from the 70s, and then just like Dr. Dre would do that really well. And then it would turn into this amazing song that's completely different and almost something like you were saying, completely new. Right? Like there's a difference between doing like what he did and
yeah.
then what like I love that song Tracy Chapman did, Fast Car. I know that got a lot
Yeah,
of press, but then there was this country music star, Sean Combs, is that his name?
I
I
think
forget his
so.
name, but anyway, nice. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but like he basically took the exact same song, but just made it with the country twang.
Right.
That's different. I mean, he
Yeah.
was respectful to Tracy Chapman and everything, but that's the point. Is like he's basically just taking something that's exactly already existing and just tweaking it a tad. Like I'd rather you do something different. Like, okay, Whitney Houston. That's probably one of the greatest remake songs ever. Is Dolly Parton did this country song called "I Will Always Love You." It's great. Dolly Parton's awesome. She's kind of a beast. But yeah, it was its own little cute little country song. Whitney Houston took it and made it something completely different. Like Dolly Parton first heard it on the radio. She pulled the car over at a Walgreens and like fucking listened to the whole thing because she couldn't believe, like, oh my God, this is my song, but it's nothing like it. Like that's cool. Like
Right.
I like that kind of remake when you're taking something and making it new.
Yeah. And I think the issue that I see with it is now because the bar is much lower, the talent is also much lower to do it.
Yeah.
So there are people who are remixing and doing these things, and then they're just not as talented, but it's out there and it's getting tons of views. And I hope and wonder whether that is discouraging to other kids to actually show their talent, because it takes a lot to put yourself out there. And
Yeah.
like with comedy, when you have a new joke, how often is that new joke perfect the first time you do it? You know what I mean? It's not. You go
Yeah.
out there and it's gotta suck. But then you have all this other kind of like remixing stuff and people doing dances, and that's where that stuff's easy. You don't have to go out there and fail with it. It's good,
It's hard.
yeah,
Because
it's
we
gonna be
want that
good.
immediate validation. We want the likes and the views now. And that's a problem with that generation. I mean, I'm not like that's wrong with their generation, but more like that's how they were conditioned and raised. And I'm getting into that too. Like, let me ask you a question. Okay, let's say there's a joke you really believe in. You're like, I know this is funny. It might not be working. Like, how many times do you do it and then realize I'm just gonna shelve this? You know what I mean? Like, how many failures?
You know what? I'll bomb. I'll bomb the hell out
I
of that joke.
respect that.
I will.
But
I
how many
will.
times though? Like, how many different performances?
Let's see.
been
I will
raised there?
probably, if I have something, I think I'll give it a maximum of like, I don't know if I do times. I'll do time periods. So all right, I'm working on this. All right, this month I'm doing, these bits, or I'm trying to build it, and I'll just be hitting it. I'll be doing it, you know what I mean, and then tweaking it a little bit for a week or a month. And then there's I don't know, sometimes I operate off feeling. It'll be like,
Mhm.
I feel that's not ready. That's not gonna work. So it'll go in the back burner. But I will leave it in the notes to come back to later. And sometimes something will happen in life and it'll put the words into a sequence that makes the other thing that didn't work funny and actually work.
Yeah.
But I will try it for like maybe a week or something. And so that'll be like maybe 7 times, 6 times. What about you? How many times will you try something before you're like, all right, scrap it?
All right, I'll be honest, because this is probably why I ways I can improve is if I do a joke, like I know this is funny, like I might not have made it funny yet, but I know this is going to be great. If I do it at a mic or a show, what I do is if it's at a mic, I barely count that, like whatever. Half the times they're not even listening. But if I'm doing a legit show and I smuggle that joke in like in the middle, sandwich it between good stuff, and that joke's not hitting after like 3 or 4 times, I would not throw it away, but I'd put it to the side and say, okay, I'll come back to this, or let me work on this some more, and maybe whatever, a few weeks, months, I'll come back to it. But the point of me raising that is that it is so hard to fail on something, even if it's new and interesting. Like I can tell you all about how awesome it is to be original. It's a hell of a lot easier to go with the safe bet. And I think that's for them, when they're reposting or retweeting things that are trends, it's just easy to do the safer bet. I get it.
Yeah, it's trending. It's going to work because it's trending. And if not, it just washes away into the ether with all the other ones that tried the trending thing. You know what I mean? It's almost like a wave, or like the ocean, or the sand at the beach. It's just going to wash away with the wave. Maybe it'll rise to the top, or maybe it's nothing and it goes away. But it still wasn't a part of you. You know what I mean? I feel like what we're doing is like giving a part of us. And one thing that we've been doing now, because my son will get frustrated if he can't do a thing. And then he kind of does this, he kind of throws his hands up. And we started telling him like, hey, you can do hard things. You can do nope, try it again. You can do hard things. And I feel like getting that message over and over again is like, no, wait, this is hard, but I can do it. Like, I know I can do it. And then to keep trying is something that is important. And then, of course, seeing daddy fail and seeing daddy succeed. You don't want daddy just to always be failing, but to see daddy fail and then succeed, I feel like is something good for them. Do you take your kid to see your shows? Have you done that yet?
So he's now, like, as of like 6 months ago, got the concept of where's daddy going, and I'm like, comedy show. And sometimes he'll say, I want to go to comedy show. So I was asked to perform stand-up at a wedding. And I went out of I made sure.
Wait, impromptu, or was this scheduled?
No, this was scheduled. Like,
okay.
I was the comic for this wedding. It was like her cousin, and she said, can you perform? Like, sure. So I did that. And then my son came. And then when it was time for me to get up on stage, I made sure that he was there to see me. And he got so excited when I got up on stage. He actually ran up on stage, and he would like follow me and mimic all the things that I'm doing. So if I'm like pointing, he'll like point to and just walk around me while I was performing my set. And then at one point I handed him the microphone, and then he just like said gibberish, and it was fun. Like, that was cool.
He killed with the gibberish.
I made a joke saying that guy's getting more laughs from that gibberish than I did with my real words, but
it is what it is.
But has your kid seen you, or?
So we took him to one show, and it's funny because I don't know if you know Dwayne White. He's another comedian.
Yeah, I know.
He's been.
I was last night.
Yeah, so he he was headlining, and then I was featuring. So I went up, I did my thing, and he was, he was sitting there. He's, I don't care if he's in the audience and he's heckling. He's like, like saying things. When I perform, I'm not really worried about like, oh, I got to get this thing. I just want the people to have fun. So I don't get like, I got to say my set. I got to say the words. I'm like, I just want people to have fun. And if I could get all my words out, that's awesome. So he's heckling me and I'm just like, oh, I'm having fun with it or whatever. And then like Dwayne goes up and he keeps heckling. I'm like, you can't do everybody. So Dwayne gets up there like, welcome our headliner. And then he's like, no, daddy. Like, oh, daddy. Which is kind of interesting. But we did take him to shows when he was a baby, when he was really, really young. So that was cool. We got like the little headphone, the earmuffs kind of, so we can put those on and he's not getting all the loud sounds. And the early shows are the ones that we would do, or like a daytime show or something like that. So we would take him to that. And he's getting a little bit older now, so we'll take him to different shows. But it is funny that you said about the whole thing of when you're going out. Like my kid also, he's starting to understand like, daddy, go do comedy, to the point where now if he's like frustrated with me, or if I'm trying to like tell him that he needs to do something, he's like, no, and he'll like push me and say, go do comedy.
Oh, it's hard though. I gotta tell you, it's for people like us too, because I feel like a lot of comedians who have kids are either like Dwayne, whose kids are growing up, so kind of gonna go out, or a lot of the other comics don't have kids yet or aren't married, so they have the ability to kind of go out every night and just hang out at the clubs. And I really believe that, yes, of course, comedy is a meritocracy. If you're funny, you get time, of course. But I do think that getting a lot of those opportunities at the earlier stage is just by hanging around and people recognizing your face and knowing you. And that's kind of tricky for, at least for me, because I can't go out every night. Like if I go out to do comedy, it's kind of a thing where I have to arrange it with my wife and make sure that someone's watching her kid. And then I have daddy guilt because I want to be with him. So because he's 3. So it's kind of hard. So I'm only getting out, if I'm lucky, twice a week, if I'm lucky. And I try to like be surgical about it because my kid doesn't want to go to sleep unless I'm there, like to put him to bed and tell him the story. So comedy, we're nocturnal animals. So I try to do a show where I get there at like 7:38 and then get home by like 10 or something. So
what time does your kid usually go to bed? Is it like a 7 bedtime or?
He goes to bed late. I'm not gonna lie. He goes to bed like because he's waiting for daddy, So like, he doesn't go to bed till like 10:30. This daylight savings screwed us up. I hate daylight savings.
Yeah, it's crazy. That is a difficult part. Mine is he goes to bed earlier, so
that's
usually
nice.
I get to get home and play with him for a little bit, maybe give him a bath or something, read him a book, and then boom, shoot out and go to the thing. The thing is, once you start hanging out and people, it gets a little bit easier because then people are more willing to like be flexible on when you go up and all that type of thing.
They are.
So that is type of helpful. Here's one thing that is a little bit of a different subject, but kind of in the same vein. Do you notice that there seems to be this thing in society where people are like, I hate kids, or we don't like kids. And I don't know, I'm just getting it from us talking. Like, you like your kid. I like my kid. And other people are like, oh, just wait till they grow up. I'm like, no, I think I'm going to always like them. I think even if they're doing I think I'm going to instill in them, they might be doing something crazy, but I think I'm going to still like them. Hopefully, that's what I'm hoping. But I just feel like there's this shift of like people just don't like children, and it's crazy to me because literally we as a species don't survive if we don't nurture our children. And if everything we're putting out there is children suck or whatever, or I don't want relationships, I don't want no kids, and I'm like, wow, that's kind of a wild way to be. Like, here's my person. I don't think those people should get to make decisions in society. If you don't care what is going to be happening in society moving forward, why should you get to make decisions on society now? Like, you don't care about the future.
If you're not taking out sperm out of your body, you don't get to vote. No sperm, no vote.
Yeah, exactly. You show me how many times you've nutted. That will determine.
A jacket.
Yeah, we need to know. We need to know if you're procreating before you get to vote.
Put him in prison. Jacket, or we'll crack it. You just hit him over the head, and you arrest him.
No, but
I do think there's something interesting. No, I think you hit on something really interesting, and that's what's happened. I think is that people have waited longer in life to have kids. Like, look at us, right? We're like in our 40s, and we have a 3-year-old. Like, That would never happen during my parents' generation,
Oh
right? My
yeah.
mom and dad my mom was in her 20s when she got married.
Right.
My mother-in-law, my wife's mom, is like in her 50s. And my
Right.
wife is like, almost 40. So like, well, yeah, late 50s, early 60s. So like the point is that we're having kids much later. A lot less people are having kids because they're waiting to
Mm-hmm.
meet someone, and then by then it's too late to have kids. So I think it's just easier to kind of say, I'm glad with my choice that I didn't have kids, right? It's kind of like a self-preservation thing, because otherwise you're going to feel shitty about the fact that you missed
Yeah.
out on this. Because I know so many women too, and it's unfortunate because women are kind of like got the biological clock thing where I bet so many women who are like in their late 30s, and they're like, I might not ever have kids, and it's just easier to kind of Chelsea Handler it and say,
Yeah.
look how happy I am. I got this extra money and this extra time. And at the same time, I do think there are some people who are just having kids doesn't make sense for them.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be like, if you're smart enough to say, I understand this is a really big responsibility, I don't want to do it. I kind of respect you for that. Like that's a mature
For
decision
sure.
but at the same time, I think that is going to be a problem. Like 1 in 3 men under the age of 30 are involuntarily celibate. Like they can't find, and it's not about just not having sex. It's like you're not having a human connection. And I think
Mm-hmm.
there's also studies about a lot of women are going to end up not having kids. So that is going to be a thing,
Well,
you know?
here's the other thing is that like all these people are on, antidepressants and everything, and they're
Yeah, it's
taking
hard.
these things which they numb your ability to make connections. They even numb your ability to have sex. So they're not getting sexual pleasure, which is one of the key reasons why we like want to, or one of the key reasons why we keep having babies is because it feels great to have sex, but you're
Feels
numbing
amazing.
that with the antidepressant. So you have a whole, you know, a grouping of people who have this numb, like kind of numbed down existence where like sex isn't even pleasurable for them. So then of course you don't want to have kids. Like the way to have kids isn't even fun for you. So it's like, why would I want to go
Yeah.
through all that? There's
And,
no benefit of it, you know?
and porn is so easily accessible too, right? Like it's
That's the other thing.
easier to watch something on your screen than as opposed to, sex is work, man. You gotta take off your clothes, you gotta
Yeah.
warm her up, and then you gotta clean up afterwards. It's just so much easier to
Warm
pull
her
up your
up.
phone.
I like mine cold. No.
Right,
You
right.
start
I mean, like
sweating and
literally warm her up. Like I put a heating pad
yeah.
on her genitals to see if that works. Like Mr. Miyagi
That's
it
why we
up. But
always
no, but
start rubbing their back, you know. It's just like
I
wait.
met a friend of a friend was telling me once that she was dating this guy. It's the early stages of the relationship, so that's when you're extra intimate, right? And she said one time that the guy was staying at her apartment for the weekend. She caught him like jacking it, like watching porn in the living room, and she's like, "I'm right here. We could have sex." He's like, "Yeah, this is just easier." And I do think that's another part of it too. It's just easier. And his girlfriend's like really good looking, right? Like looks like a
Yeah.
supermodel, and but it's just I do
Well,
think that's a part of it as well. It's just
it's also
easier
the
to have porn.
rejection of like going for it and then being like, nah, so it's like rather than porn's not going to reject you unless you're in Virginia. But porn is definitely going to be like, okay, like I can you can access it, you can get to it. Whereas like if you have another partner, like they have to consent,
And you have to communicate with them too. Like, I
yeah,
want this, I don't want this. Whereas porn, you can just like look at the category
you
and you
just
could be like black
search it.
stepmother, and that's it. You're ready to go. Whereas with a woman, you can't tell her to become a
I,
black
wait, I don't
stepmother.
think black. I don't think.
Be a
I don't think
be a
when you
black
search.
stepmother.
Wait, time out. Stepmother. I feel like that category is very, very small. I am just thinking all my time of porn watching. I've never seen black stepmother. It's always the
Really?
white. It's always white like stepmothers and stepbrothers and stepbro. Like I'm
Hey,
just thinking
porn is the most
ebony.
racially inclusive thing in our
It is,
society.
but
Just so
here's
you
the
know, they
thing:
have everything.
it's always just ebony. It's not like
You're right.
I
They
don't
do use
know.
that word. What is that? It's a
Ebony
weird.
is
I
black.
know what ebony means. I know that, but I'm saying like that's not a term that's used in like common day to day life. Even if I said, "Yeah, that guy was really ebony," I think that'd be borderline racist. Like it doesn't feel. You know what I mean? Like I think
Well,
someone should cancel some of these porn sites
it's
for
kind of
that for being racist.
it's a weirdo thing. If you start talking about things in ebony, people will think you're talking about porn. If you just always say,
I'm mad about the fact that they just lump us all together as Asian.
hey, oh,
Like
you
Asia's a
get lumped
big
into
continent.
Asian.
Yeah, we're South Asian, right? Like India, Pakistan is over 1 billion of us. We don't look like we're Chinese, but they assume that. I just little things like that kind of bother me.
Yeah,
But
there needs to be more representation in porn. You're right. You are.
yeah, I comment on it all the time in the comment bubbles. Like they were like, she's hot, she's hot. I'm like, this is racist.
This is,
Check
but
yourself.
I feel like because the Muslim culture is very strict. So if you say, or if there's porn out there that's Muslim, there's an uproar about it. It's like
Mia Khalifa, man.
yeah,
She got
she
a
was
lot
wearing
of
the
death threats.
hijab. That was a whole thing, dude. I did some extensive research to see what they were talking about, and I will tell you that those they were very
A
tasteful.
lot of research. Very
A lot of
tasteful, very respectful.
very respectful research.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, representation and whatnot, you are a civil rights lawyer.
Yeah.
How does that inform your parenting? Do you use or not do you use civil rights terms for your kid? But how do you what is it does having the kid make you think or go harder for people's civil rights, or are you on the other side of I'm sure you're fighting for civil rights, not against them.
Well, it just makes me a bit more aware of things like I do
Mhm.
now. I used to do a lot of racial discrimination and sex discrimination. Now I do mostly disability rights. So it kind of makes me think about, there's kids with disabilities and being mindful about that. Or like my wife's a doctor, so she kind of thinks a lot about like, is he on the spectrum? Things like that.
Mhm.
But otherwise, not really. I think it's more just, I guess when you're a lawyer, you argue or you think in a certain way. So like if he wants like ice cream, I try to like say, okay, tell me why. Because I want ice cream. That's conclusory. You need to give me a real reason, like lay it out. And if he gets, sometimes he like, gave me a good argument, like I'm really hungry, or you said I could. I'm like, okay, we'll get ice cream. Like I'm trying
Yeah.
to reward him and incentivize him by like thinking critically and
Mhm.
actually like giving me an argument. Um, you know, things like that. But other than that, no, not really. When I come home from work, like I don't really want to do work, like I don't watch lawyer shows except for like a clip of Suits on TikTok or something because the writing is really good.
Yeah.
But I don't like to even talk about civil rights that much, even when I do stand up. Really, I want to do the opposite. I want to be racist on stage.
Oh,
It's more fun.
interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you're dating a conservative woman, like she's conservative in real life, but then in the bedroom she's like wild and crazy and liberal, and it's vice versa. If she's like liberal with female empowerment in real life, then
She's
at
like,
home she's
"Mm."
like dominate me.
Yeah,
So
right. Interesting. No, I do think that giving kids critical thinking skills at a young age is super important. That is uh
yeah,
some that I have recently looked at in terms of when I ask them questions like, why do you think that? Or what, what is going on with that thing? Or what do you think about this? Oh, what do you think? Why do you like this character? And I wonder, if kids are getting that kind of prompt to think about things as opposed to just, do this or here's this toy or whatever, and never kind of thinking beyond that. I feel like, as comedians, we're like deep thinkers. So having your kid also deep think is something that we probably want them to do, but I don't know that they're being pushed to do that. They're kind of just being pushed to like, here is what is, just accept it and then keep moving along and keep doing the cookie cutter thing. But I feel like critical thinking is a huge part of raising the kid,
it is. And it's sometimes like I even underestimate my own kid, like because you see him, you play him with him, he's goofy. I'll read to him at the dinner table or something. But the other day at school, the kids had the little exercise where you're supposed to talk about your feelings, and my kid said, "I feel sad when mommy and daddy go to work."
Oh man.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. I mean, I know he misses us, but like he thought about that critically, and then they wrote it down, and like they framed it. So it's like it's a shame to me, and now it's like it's there at the school. The other kids are like, ice cream makes me happy, and he like, I feel sad when mommy and daddy like.
That's see, you're already winning. Your kids are gonna like you. You know what I mean? You're gonna
For
like your kids.
now,
Like they want you to, be around. It's super.
I'm gonna admit this right now. I have some daddy guilt because like I don't know how it is for you guys. Sounds like your kids sleep separately from you and your wife, which is awesome. But like for
No,
us,
not at all. He sleeps.
oh, he doesn't.
No,
He sleeps with us too.
he wakes us up every morning. He goes into his room and then comes back and brings his toys.
Okay, so that what we do is I worked so hard to sleep train that kid, like 3 or 4 times, right? Because he was in his crib. I got him to sleep the whole night. It was the best thing ever. Scariest moment of my life is when he climbed out of his crib and he
Right.
came back with a big smile. It's like and he's opening the door. It's kind of like that thing in Jurassic Park when they said, hey, the dinosaurs are kept, they're all fine. He goes, they're going to be fine. They're like, unless they learn how to open doors.
And then
that was my kid. And so I was freaked out. So I finally trained him. He's in the crib. I made him wear a sleep sack so he wouldn't climb out of the crib. And then recently we got him a bed. And that changed everything because now he can get up in the middle of the night. So rather than putting him down, lying down on the floor next to him, waiting for him to sleep, sneaking out, only for him to wake up 3 hours later, I just said, screw it, sleep with us in the bed. And I have guilt too because I'm gone, I'm working. So I'd rather just have those.
Well, if you think about it, I've thought about this as well. And if you think about it, it's actually very foreign for like a child to sleep away from the parent when they're so young. Like if all the civilization wasn't here, we're back to hunter-gatherers, you wouldn't have your kids sleep, 2 trees over. You got to have them close to you to protect them. You know what I mean? Because they'll get snatched up by a bear, a wolf, or whatever. You know what I mean? Or a fox or whatever predator is out there. So you want to have them close. So it's actually really foreign for the kids not to sleep with the parents. How crazy is that? You just come into this world and your parents are like, hey, go over there.
Where it's dark.
Where it's
scary.
It's
and
scary.
You're alone.
Go by. We'll leave a light on. Just deal with it. Like if you think about it critically, it's like actually it is kind of backwards to have the kid sleep far away from you. That does kind of not make sense. Shout out to my wife for pointing that out to me because I was like, no, we got to sleep train. And she's like, no, the studies say and all this other stuff. And I was like, blah. But then now I'm just like used to it or whatever. And that, she it's probably more stressful for her because I'm the type of person like when I wake up, I'm like happy to be awake. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, cool. Where she's like, I really need to sleep. And
I'm the same. I'm like your wife.
No,
it's amazing how kids love life so much. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
That's the thing that makes them the most angry is going to sleep, right? Exactly. Because they want to be alive.
Yeah.
They want to be awake. They want to experience things. And then going to bed makes them sad. And what happens as soon as they wake up? They're happy.
They're happy.
Like,
yep. Yeah.
You'll never meet anyone who loves life as much as those
little tyrants. All right. So what makes you happy? We're here at the blurting question. What makes you nerd out? What do you nerd out about?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I love it to see my son eat a meal. Oh. I know it's like a Pakistani mom, I guess, infused in me, but I get so much satisfaction knowing that he ate really well. That makes it's weird. I get satisfaction reading to him. I read books to him while he's eating. It's the best time because he doesn't pay attention very well. I love I guess my wife and I try to take her out every week. Sometimes I can't do it every week. It's hard, but it's kind of cool. We could go out, but then of course, whenever we go out, we're talking about our kid.
Yeah, it sounds like you nerd out about your kid and your family.
Okay, I can talk about other things. Okay,
no, I'm just if that's your thing, that's your thing.
Here's orgasmic level of happy: doing a brand new joke for the first time and it crushes.
Yeah,
like that you've like, oh my god, I've unlocked a box, and sometimes it surprises you what the audience likes. Like because sometimes you think, oh, I know it's funny. And then the thing you think is awesome doesn't do well, but then the thing you did was a dumb throwaway crushes. Yeah. And you're like, oh my God, can I turn this into a bit? Like that excitement of, oh my God, this bit went really well. I got it on tape because it always happens. You're not recording when you're doing really well, right?
Right.
And having that in the excitement of, I'm good, right? Because there's times where you feel like you're not good. So, or at least for me. So that crushing a bit for the first time that I didn't expect to go that well. Stuff with my kid, my wife. What else? Yeah, last thing I nerd out on. My wife goes out with her girlfriends or something, and my son is with his grandparents. They live 30 minutes away. It's one of the reasons we live here. Nice. He comes and sees them once a week. I get a steak and I make it for myself. And then I get some white rice and butter. I have a whole way of making a steak. I'm a big steak guy. And then I watch Rick and Morty with lemonade and steak and rice. And it's a weird thing, but I'm really into it.
Dude, I'd love some Rick and Morty, and I love steak. How do you cook it? Do you grill it? Do you
frying pan all the way?
Okay.
So grilling is great, but we have a grill in our building. We live in an apartment building upstairs, but it's a hassle. So I'm all about frying pan. I don't put it in the oven first and then fry it.
Mm.
No. Fry pan all the way. Gordon Ramsay has a video on it. It's pretty okay.
What do you cook it to? Medium rare, rare?
I've just gone up to medium rare. I used to be
Okay.
medium, now I'm medium rare. I go between New York strip because it
Mhm.
really gets the flavor. I like to really season it pretty thoroughly. Or ribeye, you can't go wrong, but New York strip is like much
Right.
more
It's
affordable
better.
and just as good if you marinate it well and cook it right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then Costco has you could get the big one where you just cut them yourself. That's like
Yep.
it's like a
Yeah, I
hack.
know
You
about
know
that.
what I mean? Because I think if you went out to buy them, you get like 4 or 5 steaks, and then it's like $100. But if you get the big like
It's like
block
75, yeah.
block of beef, you get like 8 to 10 steaks out of that. You know what I mean? For
Yeah.
$120.
They have a Wagyu. Have you heard about these rumors that Costco has the Wagyu beef, but like cheap?
I
I've heard
I
about
feel
these
like I
rumors.
have heard that before, but I've never tried it or went for it.
Yeah.
I know Costco you could get a whole side of lamb.
Yes, that they have. They even have the halal ones. So like for people who are Muslim, it's kind of cool. I mean, I eat non-halal, but like that's kind of cool. But yeah, I heard these rumors that they have like it's like once a week they get this shipment of like Wagyu steak, and
Yeah.
it's like not it's like $30 a steak or $25, which is like for Wagyu is super cheap because
Yeah,
like
for sure.
if you go to a restaurant, it's like hundreds of dollars. So to
But
get,
you
I'm
gotta
like
you
really
gotta
excited.
cook that. You gotta cook that right because it can
Yeah,
get
I'm
real
scared to
kind of
cook it.
yeah, real kind of true. You gotta cook it nice and slow and have it. Oh man, now you're making me hungry for actually, oh, we could have some steak and eggs. Honey, get the steak and eggs ready. We're gonna
Ooh.
we're gonna
What's your
have that.
favorite kind of steak?
What's that?
What's your favorite cut? Like what kind of steak do you like?
I like a T-bone,
Ooh,
or like a porterhouse. Those I don't know. For some reason, I feel like those are like substantial. I think I saw a John Candy film where he's eating this big steak, and it was like one of those. It was like a big T-bone or
the
a
Great
porterhouse.
Outdoors.
Yeah, Great Outdoors. Yeah, where you had to eat,
Yeah,
and it just always stuck with me as like the peak of like eating excellence.
that guy's
Um,
the legend.
yeah, he is, man. We miss him. R.I.P. But yeah, I like that, and I just have really been because I got a smoker, so I've been really into grilling and
Ooh,
smoking now. And it is, I gotta say, the number one favorite thing to do. I'm in my old fat black guy who smokes era. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna throw
yeah.
some ribs on the smoker type of thing. You know what I mean? So
Most
I'm
fun
really
people to be
leaning into
around.
that. What's that?
Most fun people to be around. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, exactly. People who
I
want to
love
just
to have a
make
smoker.
food for you, just want to cook food for you. Yeah, we got to get together, do like a play date or something, and make some
Yeah,
steaks or whatever.
for
For the
sure.
I think that'll be good. Yo, and then the other thing is Rick and Morty is a favorite of mine. Like
Yeah,
how intelligent and smart the writing is, and the creation of that is beyond me. I just think it's an incredible piece of satire that is it's just great, and it says so much about like society and intelligence, and all these different things that we're thinking about doing, and it does kind of make science less scary, because it's like, oh
yeah,
wow, that's crazy, but you also see like the ramifications of it. And the crazy thing about Rick and Morty is, and here's where I knew that I liked it, was something crazy happened. And every like show, like you were saying before, the dude has to be the good guy in the end, and everything has to work out in the end. They figure it out in the end or whatever. But the first season, I don't know, this is a spoiler, but the first season where like something happened, there was a mishap, and
yeah,
then they were trying to fix it, and then they just figured out they couldn't fix it, so the whole planet died, and then they just went to another. But I
yeah.
was just
Just
like,
left the
oh,
whole
what?
completely. But what I love about the show is the whole show is like, what does it mean to be human? That's what the whole show is about.
Mhm.
And I mean, for people who haven't seen the show, he suffers the consequences of that. Like he is confronted with that decision much later on the show.
Oh, yeah.
And it asks these great questions. It has good drama even too for like a dumb
Oh,
cartoon that
yeah.
says stupid jokes. Like one of my favorite parts is when Rick is like going to his daughter. His daughter's all like stressed out. She's a grown woman. She's like, I don't know what to do with my life. Do I leave my husband? And Rick's like, you know what I can do? I can make a perfect clone of you. Somebody who can take care of the family, stay here, and then you could go out and do whatever you want. And she's like, oh, I don't know if I could do that. He goes, good. then stay and luxuriate in a choice in a life that you know is yours alone. Like the idea, like that kind of got my thinking, like, if someone could make a clone of me to make sure that my wife and kid are okay and I can just take off and do what I want when I do it, I would. But like some people might. And that's an interesting, I don't know. That was just a really
here's
question.
the thing. If I could have a clone, I would have that person go do the work. You know what I mean? Like,
do my job. Right.
Yeah, go do the job. That's the thing I want them to do. But that's how we got to slavery. So
that is slavery.
That is literally slavery.
There's a lot of slavery going around in kids programming. Okay, Scooby-Doo. Okay, the dog talks. He has a soul, but he also has an owner who brings him around against his own will to solve these mysteries. Like nobody else is enamored by the fact there's a fucking talking dog, but we're all scared of this guy and this werewolf.
Right. You know how much money that talking dog could be making instead of being on these stupid little side missions with Shaggy?
Like, you could be rich.
Oh, crap. Yeah, you could be rich.
But so my kid loves Scooby-Doo now, right? And I make him watch the old 70s version that I watched when I was a kid. And you know what's crazy? I asked him, who's your favorite character? You know what my son said?
Who?
Daphne. The hot one. The hot one who brings nothing to the table. She doesn't anything smart. Like she isn't like Thelma, who's the smart one. He doesn't like Scooby.
She just stands there.
Yeah, she just stands there with the sexy pose. And I'm like, hey, who's your second favorite? And he's like, Fred. The hot male. Keeping his options open. Like, what the heck, man? I was so mad at him. Like, come on, you should pick at least Shaggy is funny. He's got some good one-liners, but
oh man. Yeah.
What does your kid watch?
He's really into Toy Story now. He's like super into Toy Story.
Good
but I just tried to get him to start watching Dragon Ball Z. I was going to see if he could watch it, and he was like really into it for like an episode or so. So, but I feel like we'll have to come back to it. But I was like, because it'll be nice to have like a daddy son thing that we can share and experience together. Like it's an anime 100%. I should have watched a long time ago. But
oh my god, that's like 40% the reason I had a kid. It's so fun to like re-experience those things. So like Scooby-Doo was kind of fun. I haven't watched the opening credits to the Ninja Turtles show from the cartoon from the 90s.
Right.
We had like awesome animated shows.
Oh, for sure.
Like X-Men, which they're bringing back now. Batman, the animated series, probably the best of all time.
Remember Animaniacs?
And that was really witty. That's there that I think we got as kids. So like it's fun to watch those with them. I can't wait to do Star Wars, Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Like, I'm dying. I got a son. I mean, women can like that too, but like boys are really into that stuff. So like I can't wait.
Well, think about all the Marvel movies we have to catch up. Like the whole being able to live through Infinity War and Endgame again. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if you saw that, but that was just a piece of cinema that I don't think it'll be very hard to recreate just the mass excitement for a thing, and then to have that thing just like crush our expectations and then come back and give us one of the most iconic scenes. And like I don't think people will be able to do that again. So it's just being able to relive that with him again. It's going to be amazing.
You know what's crazy? I don't know if people remember this, but that when that movie came out, Endgame, when like Tony Stark snapped his fingers, all the bad guys go away. That was the same weekend that Arya Stark took in Game of Thrones, took a blade and killed all the ice people. And they all right. Away. There's two Starks killing like massive amounts of people.
You know what? I've never thought about that.
Yeah. So like that was a mind-blowing time for me in terms of pop culture. Like, right? Like I loved it. I was in the theater. I hate people who clap in theaters and airplanes, but I was one of them. I'm like, yeah.
Right. To hear people cheer and get like excited. That was
a cultural phenomenon. That was a cultural moment. That's almost like, I mean, there's a moon landing. That's probably like, 9/11. Those are like big, like, oh my God, where were you?
Yeah.
And this is like the next tier under that of like, what was it like to watch Endgame
for
the end of Marvel being good?
Yeah, or the snap was one where everyone, it was just funny, that snap, and then at the end of the movie, everybody just walked out of the theater like shell shocked. Like usually people were talking, after the movie, like blah 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 blah. I like this. Oh, that was crazy. It's like silence. Everybody just walked out like we just left the funeral.
I'll tell you, the Marvel used to be such a well-oiled machine, man. Like they would be like, we're gonna get 1 or 2 movies a year. That's all you get. We're gonna make them good. We're gonna take our time. We're gonna get interesting people like Ryan Coogler. We're gonna let him make his own movie, Black Panther. Do your own thing. Like they used to do that. They get these hungry directors. Like Ryan Coogler only had a couple movies, Fruitvale Station, I think he did Creed, and that's it. That's
Right.
it.
Right.
And he's like, here you go. And that those people who are hungry, who are young and have this energy are going to make a different kind of film rather than someone who's well established. So like they would get these filmmakers, they make 1 or 2 a year, have quality control. I mean, there really weren't that many bad Marvel movies up to Endgame. Like, yeah, there was Thor 2 and a couple ones that I wouldn't watch again, but like quality was pretty good.
Yeah. And then when you look, I feel like they did a good job of like kind of retconning what those movies were. Like, for example, Iron Man 3 at the time was like, that was whack. But it really led into a lot of Tony Stark's character development and other characters, like their development later in the series. And it made so much more sense later in all the other films or whatever. So it like changed how much I enjoyed Iron Man 3 watching, the other ones. That was really good. And they got the Russo brothers, coming in and like Winter Soldier. Like, so being able to relive all that with them and just being like, what did you like about it? It's just like I can't wait for all that stuff and Star Wars or whatever. Game of Thrones, I wish they would just redo the last season. That's why I don't think it registered with me, the whole Arya Stark thing. Because I think that last season was so much of a letdown that it like
isn't that
whatever.
Isn't that terrible of us though as people? Like I'm the same way, by the way, but like they did consistently put up amazing content for Game of Thrones. I mean, there was a while where I would consider that show like one of the greatest of all time. Like it was really great, but because the last few seasons, the last one in particular, like because they just kind of put in like 10 seasons worth of content per episode. Like we're gonna kill 4 characters. We hate them for it now, and the whole legacy is starting. It's like the Matrix, right? The first Matrix movie, probably one of the greatest science fiction movies of all time, but the sequel sucked. So now it's done. Like, I hope that people look at this like as comedians. You know what I mean? Like, if I had a really great special, but then my next one wasn't as good, so now I'm terrible. You know what I mean? Like, that's harsh, and I'm guilty of it too.
Yeah, for sure. So, so speaking of specials, before we get out of here, you opened for Akash Singh. How was that, number one? And did you watch his special, number two?
I haven't seen the new special. I want to. It's on my list. Like, I only can watch things when my wife and son are asleep, and it's like 11 or midnight, so it's kind of hard. But it's on my list. I think he's great. What I like about him for a few things is that he's actually really nice and really generous. I actually opened for him way early when I first started stand-up comedy, and I did well, but he did really well. And I went up to him like, "How did you do that?" And he gave me his number and he gave me advice about, know your brand, know your worth. And then I opened for him a couple times subsequently. I didn't get to open for him at the DC Improv recently. He already had people with him, but I almost did. Anyway, what I like about his some of his bits is that he is doing this counterculture that you and I've kind of talked about, where it's like everyone was on the grain of like Apu from The Simpsons was a terrible racist character on The Simpsons, right? And then he had a whole special on Bring Back Apu. Apu is actually an honorable character who was funny and, it's actually the embodiment of the American dream. And I kind of like the fact that he's willing to go against the grain and make those comments and arguments. And I asked my mom and dad, like, Mom and Dad, were you offended by Apu? And like, my dad's like, Apu is my favorite character. And I'm like, but Dad, it's voiced by a white guy. And he's like, aren't actors supposed to play people who are different than them?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, anyway, Akash thing, I think he's great. He has interesting, thoughtful things to say, and he's not afraid to, put himself.
The whole Apu thing is crazy because it's just like, oh no, he's voiced by white actors. Like, oh well, we'll just get rid of everything. It's like, wait, what?
You can get him. I mean, and Hank Azaria, the guy who did the voice, is amazing voice actor. And the show was made in like the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, and I'm South Asian. Like there just weren't a lot of us in pop culture. It was like me and M. Night Shyamalan. Not me, but like M. Night Shyamalan is all we had. That guy's my hero because of that. But like we didn't have anybody. So that's why times have changed now, and it's awesome, and it's going to continue to get better. Now we have like a zillion famous people who look like me.
Well, shoot, you have given us way too much time, man. You're amazing. Thank you for spending your time with us.
Thank you.
Your time. I know it's fleeting when you have the kids and you have work and you have all these different things and whatnot. But this is really fun, man. It's cool to get to know you. Cool to get to talk to you about it. Get a little insight on parenting things. Tell everybody where can they find you, where they can get more of Badar's comedy.
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram. Badar Tareen as my handle. So BADARTAREEN. Oh, you can see it there on the screen. I have a website, badartareen.com. I'm doing the Dubai Comedy Festival coming up next month. So I'm actually going to go to Dubai and work with Zarnagar. We're going to do this big show at the Opera House, 2,000 people, just me and another comic. And yeah, I got Browntown. I got a show coming up in May. So we're going to be at the Capital Fringe Festival with Browntown as well. So
I love
that'll
it.
be kind of
Wait,
cool.
how brown is it? Am I too brown for Browntown, or can I come on down to Browntown?
Yeah, let's try to work that out. I think so, because we have the next couple shows are booked. Let's get you on one of them, because what I do about Browntown is it's predominantly South Asian. So it's like, let's say we have 6 comics. I try to get about 3 or 4 of them South Asian. I have one white comic, and then I have someone who's of color or something else. Like the last Browntown show, we had 2 African Americans. I've had East Asian comics, Latino comics, but I always get one white comic because I like to have me and another person get that white comic on stage and then just ask them messed up questions about race and things like that. So me and D. Ahmed did that once with Winston.
Yeah, like now, how about you represent your race for once? Like you're
and so and they love it. The comics know that we're going to ask them horrible questions. They just don't know like what the questions are going to be. So it could be something like, was the last season of Game of Thrones your 9/11?
Yeah,
like things like that. Stupid. What does sunburn feel like?
That's super fun, man. Well, shoot, I hope to see you around town. You've been awesome, man. Thank you so much, and can't wait to see what more you do and how you continue to grow. And we do got to get together, make some steaks, and get these kids together.
Let's do a play date for sure.
Definitely do a play date. So we talked about all kinds of things. We talked about raising these kids. Where are they going with the way that they are being brought up, their connection, their creativity, their ability to create. We talked about that. We talked about, of course, steaks. We did a whole thing on what's it called? Nostalgia, basically. So I don't think there's anything left to say except for blur that out.